The Devil All the Time is a 2020 psychological thriller drama.
It's directed by Antonio Campos. The screenplay is written by Antonio and Paulo Campos, and it's based on the book The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock.
The movie stars Tom Holland, Bill Skarsgård, Sebastian Stan, and Robert Pattinson.
The tomato meter rating was 64% with an audience score of 80%.
So, as Distance mentioned, it's based on the novel of the same name and narrated actually by the author of the novel. The Devil All the Time centers around Arvin Russell, but it tells many interconnected stories that actually span quite a few years. As he brought up, it centers around two towns, one in West Virginia and one in Ohio. Yeah, this movie, it kind of reminds me of, with the interconnected stories, do you remember the movie Crash?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this comes around me of like a like 1950s hillbilly Crash, which I enjoy. It was almost like with Logan Lucky reminding me of the what was it, the I forget what they called it, the hillbilly Ocean's 11, basically. I forget the term they used in the movie, but yeah, like this movie though I thought was pretty interesting. I enjoyed the movie, but I try not to like recommend based on just if I enjoyed it or not. As far as just like objective quality though, I do think that it was filmed really well. I think that the performances were great from the entire cast, and I do think that there's quite a few interesting topics that that the movie explores and that you can leaves you with something to think about. So as far as giving it just a general verdict, I've struggled with this one because even though I like the movie and I think it was done well, this almost falls kind of in the vein of I brought it up before of fuck, I even forget the movie. It's like it's the name I shall never say, basically. Requiem for a Dream, where it's a movie that I think is really good, but it's also just such a downer that I don't know if I enjoy watching it a lot. But with that being said, as far as like, should you watch this? I do think I'm going to give it a yes. But it is like, take it with a little bit of caution. It is not a very uplifting movie, but I still think it's pretty good. What about you?
I agree. It was really depressing. For the record, I was actually looking at my microphone, even though every time I look down at my microphone, it looks like I'm looking at my junk.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a crotch look. It really does, doesn't it? Actually, right then I really did, though. Okay, sorry. I've just ruined this segment. So, yeah, I agree that the movie was a really uncomfortable watch. There's a lot of stuff in there that was kind of hard to like kind of get through. And I mean, it starts out pretty heavy already. But it's one of those movies where I think that if they didn't have the cast that they had, I think that the movie, they wouldn't have been able to pull it off as well as they did. So for me, it's like I emotionally obviously doesn't give me a good feeling, but I think that it does a good story arc, and I think the plot kind of goes where the audience wants it to. So it does all the right things. It's a very well told story. And even though there's some bad shit in there, I think they tell it in a way that makes the audience kind of feel good at the end. So yeah, for me, this movie is it's a definite yes. I mean, I liked watching it, but it's not just the fact that I enjoyed the experience of watching the film, because there were certainly parts that were uncomfortable as fuck for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, this one is a yes. I was actually thinking halfway through the film, I didn't really know what I was gonna say as far as like watching it or not, because there's plenty of stuff in there that rubs you the wrong way.
Oh yeah.
And I was trying to figure out where it was going, and before I really understood, I was like, I didn't really get it. And then once the sort of weird associations start to happen, like then it's like, oh, okay, this is actually really cool. This is a really, really well written story.
Yeah.
So, and I can understand why someone like read the book and were like, this needs to be a screenplay. Like, I get that. Sure.
The story, like, of course, I've never read the book, but the story as told in this movie is almost like it had to be a movie. I feel like the book has to be quite different, or else it almost wouldn't read like a book.
Yeah, I have a feeling the narrator probably has a much bigger part in the book. I mean, I guess I think that's kind of like obvious. I think that's maybe just the nature of a book, but
that is awesome that it's the actual author that's doing the narration of the movie. I thought that was great.
And I didn't know that, but I think it's fantastic. Because I mean, that narrator was actually really contributed to the story in a big way, I think.
It's surprising. His voice sounded really familiar, but then it ended up being the author of the book. I was like, oh well, I guess I haven't heard him somewhere else. But for some reason, that like I thought I knew that voice from somewhere. But yeah, you ready to get into the spoiler territory? So,
Yeah,
spoiler.
let's
What is it?
spoil
Spoiler
it.
Terry.
Spoiler Terry.
We'll bring out spoiler Terry.